Hello and welcome to part 3 of Tale's End. Starting with chapter 5, in which Colin meets an old friend and learns about the web. Colin decided there was only one thing for it. He would have to take another trip across the river and go and see Boots. He knew his cat friend travelled more widely than he did and knew many things. If anyone had heard about a lost group of badgers and squirrels wandering around, it was likely to be Boots. Colin was a bit nervous about going back towards the town. Last time he had been there, he had made an enemy of a large dog called Prince, and had no way of knowing what had happened since then. Hello, Georgia. Will you come to have a listen? He really hoped that Prince had stayed in the town and wasn't roaming the countryside nearby. But he wanted... I'll start that again. He really hoped that Prince had stayed in the town and was not roaming the countryside nearby. But he wanted to find his friend, so he plucked up the courage to go down to the river he would cross to get to a farm where Boots seemed to live. The last time he'd been to the river, Colin had also encountered two very irritating vole pirates. He knew they would not give him any trouble, but didn't really want to waste time with them. Luckily, when he reached the riverbank, they didn't seem to be around. He was just about to step onto the stones which led safely across the river, when there was a frantic rustling behind him which nearly made him fall in the water. He recovered his footing and looked round to see Trixie explode out of the bushes. "Hi again," Trixie said, bounding up to him. "I think we got off on the wrong paw last time, so I thought I'd come and find you and tell you that I forgive you for being so rude to me, and that I think we can still be friends. Where are you going? Can I come?" She said all this without pausing for breath and while bouncing up and down on the spot. "You forgive me?" Colin asked in surprise. "Yes, I'm nice like that," Trixie replied. "Are you going over the river? What's over there? I've never been anywhere." Colin looked at Trixie and saw the eager, excited look on her face. There didn't seem to be any harm in her. She was just quite annoying. What Boots the cat would make of her, Colin really had no idea at all. "Come on then," he said, "but if you're coming with me over the river, it could be dangerous. You'll have to calm down and do what I say." "I can be calm," Trixie said. She sat down and closed her eyes for a very short space of time, then gone back up again. "There you go, that was calm. Now come on." With that, she shot off across the riverbank, and nearly knocking Colin into the water as she passed him, hopped across the stones to the other side. "What are you waiting for?" she called from the other riverbank. "Hurry up." Colin sighed and followed her across. "So, where are we going?" Trixie asked when he reached her. "We're going to see a friend of mine. Her name's Boots. She's a cat." "A cat? You're friends with a cat? I didn't know foxes could be friends with cats." As Trixie spoke, she grew more and more excited, and her voice grew louder and louder until Colin stopped and put a paw gently but firmly on her snout. "Shh," he said. "Calm, remember. Lots of animals are afraid of foxes. If you shout like that, you'll scare everyone off. And Boots said that no fair farm around here shoots foxes, so you really don't want anyone to notice you." "Shoots?" Trixie yelped in alarm. "What with those little things that go bang?" She caught a look on Colin's face and reverted to a whisper. Sorry, calm." "You'll be okay if you follow me," Colin said, "and if you're quiet. This way." He led a now silent Trixie down the track which led to the farm where Boots lived. They passed the field where several large cows stood chomping on grass and mooing to each other in their strange language, and came to the gate where Boots had been sitting when Colin first met her. But of Boots there was no sign. "Shall we call for her?" Trixie asked. "What's her name again?" "No," Colin replied firmly. "We're being quiet. We don't want to hear any bangs, do we?" Trixie looked around nervously. "I don't think she's here. I think we should go back." At that moment there was a terrific bang, which nearly made Colin and Trixie jump out of their fur, and the door of a nearby building flew open. Two small mice shot past the foxes, squeaking, "Cat! Cat!" at the top of their voices, with Boots in hot pursuit. The mice vanished under the gate and into the field, and when Boots saw she had company, she skittered to a halt. "They'll keep," she said, barely out of breath. "Col, how are you? It's been ages." "Hello, Boots," Colin said. "I'm fine. How are things with you?" "Oh, great," Boots told him. "That idiot Prince came sniffing round a few times, but the farmer put a stop to that. Fired a few shots over his head and sent him packing." "So who's this then?" Colin strolled round Trixie, sniffing. "Colin, have you got a girlfriend?" "This is Trixie," Colin replied, embarrassed. "Well, I'm his girlfriend," Trixie interrupted. "We haven't been together long, but so far it's going really well. He's taken me to meet all his friends. I'm Trixie." Yes, I'm sure you are, Boots laughed. I said that too, Colin added, and she's not my girlfriend. Yet, Trixie said, and she and Boots laughed again, making Colin feel a bit left out. So what brings you back here, Col? Boots asked finally, once she had stopped laughing. I'm looking for some friends of mine. You get around a lot. Have you heard anything about a couple of badgers and some squirrels who are wandering around lost? I can honestly say I've never been asked that before, Boots replied. Badgers and squirrels? No, I'm pretty sure I would have remembered if I'd heard that. Why? What happened? Colin told the story of the tunnel collapse and Boots listened, quiet and concerned. I don't know, she said when Colin had finished. That's the trouble with badger tunnels. They're all over the place. They could have come out anywhere. I'll tell you who might know, though. Who? The spiders. Colin looked at Boots in surprise. Spiders? He asked. What do spiders know? Oh, pretty much everything, Boots told him. Haven't you heard of the web? I nearly ate a web once, Trixie put in. I didn't mean to, it just got in the way. She stopped when she saw the look Colin was giving her. Sorry, being quiet again now. What's the web? Colin asked. I mean, I know what webs are, but... All webs are connected, Boots explained. I don't really know how it works. I don't think anyone knows apart from the spiders. But somehow all small webs are part of one big web. It's how spiders communicate with each other. A spider here can talk to a spider right over the other side of the woods, so they say. Boots looked around and spotted a gossamer spider's web glistening between two bars of the gate. Here you go, she said. Let's ask Boris. He's pretty cool for a spider. You'll have to lean in really close. They speak very quietly. Boots and the two foxes leaned in so closely to the web that the strands nearly got stuck to Trixie's nose and she had to pull back. Hey, Boris, Boots said. You busy? The spider, which had been in its nest in the corner of the web, floated softly down on a silken thread. It is Cat, it said in a voice Colin could barely hear. Always busy, Cat. Much to do. Sorry to bother you, Boris, Boots said, but my friends here need to ask you something. They can ask, Boris answered. I will try to answer. I'm looking for my friends, Mr. Boris, Colin said. 2 badgers and 2 squirrels. They're lost. Do you know where they are? 2 badgers, 2 squirrels, and now 2 foxes, Boris said. I do not know, but I will see if any of my brothers and sisters on the line know. Wait. Colin, Trixie and Boots watched as Boris reached his legs out, so as all 8 legs were touching a strand of the web. As they watched, the web began to vibrate very slightly. Then as quickly as it started, the vibration stopped. 2 badgers, 2 squirrels, Boris said. They are coming. They're coming home. Oh, that's great, Colin exclaimed. Thank you, Mr. Boris, but do you know where they are? They are in the dark end of the woods. They are nearer than they think. But there is danger in the dark end of the woods. They must beware. Now I must spin. Thank you very much, Colin said. How can we repay you? Do not let Lady Fox eat webs, Boris said simply and retreated back into his nest. There you go, Boots said. Told you. But where is the dark end of the woods, Colin asked. I've never heard of it. Well, it's not far away, Boots replied. But seriously, Colin, if your friends are in there, I wouldn't go after them. They are probably already in trouble. Chapter 6, in which we enter the dark end of the woods. The dark woods didn't seem so bad at first. Brian led the way, being far braver than he felt, with Nell, Squish and Whitetip following behind. At first, the woods seemed very much like their own woods, just darker, because the trees were growing closer to each other, and their dense branches blocked out the light. The ground was damper under their paws too, where the sunlight had not broken through to dry the soil out. Moss clung to the trunks of the trees and the stones which were scattered around the floor, and the bank of the narrow river which trickled through the middle of the wood. The air felt cooler and made everyone shiver, but otherwise it just seemed to be a cold, soggy version of their own woods. I don't know how anyone could live here, Brian observed as they walked. What a miserable place. Let's just keep following the river and hope we come out of it soon, Nell said. I don't like it very much. We'll be fine, Brian reassured her. As long as we keep moving, we won't be here long. Squitch watched as the badgers walked ahead, so close to each other that their shoulders were touching. They seem happy together, he said. Well, of course they are, Whitetip replied with a smile. When it's right, you just know. Now come on, Soppy, don't let them get too far ahead. It's so dark in here, it would be easy to get lost. We're already lost, White-Tip said, but started to hurry along a little more. They had nearly caught up with the badgers when Brian suddenly stopped. "Listen," he said, "do you hear that?" The four friends stood where they were and listened. At first they couldn't hear anything apart from the gurgle of the river over rocks. Then suddenly, from somewhere high up in the trees, they heard a faint screech. "What was that?" Nell asked in a hushed whisper. "Hawk," Brian replied, "I'm sure of it. I think it was a buzzard. It's a long way off, though." "Well, let's hope it stays a long way off," Squish said grimly. "We'd better keep moving." They carried on further into the wood, following the river where they could, but making sure they could still either see it or hear it, where the undergrowth was too tangled to walk along the bank. Apart from the burbling of the river and the occasional far-off screech of the buzzard, the wood was strangely quiet. In their woods there were always rustlings in the bushes and grass as animals of various sizes all went about their daily business. But in this odd, dark wood there seemed to be no sign of life at all. Even the birds, who filled everywhere with the sound of their twittering and song, were either silent here or not there at all. "It's as if no one wants to come here," Nell remarked at one point. "That's all the more reason why we shouldn't stay here very long," Brian replied. "There must be a reason." They hadn't gone too much further before they started to realise what the reason might be. Up until now the air had smelled of damp moss, but now a much stronger, much more unpleasant smell hit their nose. "What is that smell?" White-Tip asked. "Can anyone else smell it?" "It's awful," Squish agreed. It's like something rotting. And listen, that sounds like crows." Sure enough, they could hear the distinctive sound of what seemed to be dozens of crows croaking and cawing to each other. They pushed through a thicket and found the source of both the smell and the noise. Strewn across the floor of the wood was the biggest pile of no-fur rubbish any of them had ever seen. They were all used to the rubbish that no-furs left behind when they visited the woods, and were taught when they were very young to stay away from it, but none of them had seen anything like this. Bags of rubbish had been piled up and left to rot. Perched on top of the pile of rubbish, a gang of crows were pulling at the bags and gorging themselves on the contents, calling to each other with glee at every rotten, foul-smelling morsel they found. As soon as the group of friends emerged from the thicket, the crows stopped what they were doing, and suddenly there was silence. "Hello," Squish said. "Don't stop on our account, we were just passing through." The biggest of the crows hopped down off its pile of rubbish and looked at Squish, its head on one side and its black eyes blinking slowly. "Is that a squirrel?" it croaked. "What is a squirrel doing here?" "We're just trying to get home," Squish replied. "This is not home," the crow said. "This is ours." "Well, believe me, sir," White-Tip said, scampering over to join Squish. "We don't want it. It's not our sort of thing at all. We just want to get past and go home." Two more crows had now flown down from their meal and stood either side of the first. "Would you like us to let you go on your way?" the first crow asked. "Is that what you would like?" "Yes, please," Squish said, "if you don't mind. And you're not here to try and steal our food?" "We wouldn't eat that," Brian said, as he and Nell shuffled up behind the squirrels. "It smells disgusting." "Hungry birds and animals will eat anything they can find," the crow said. "Are you hungry? Because we are hungry." "I'm not that hungry," Brian said, wrinkling his snout. "I don't think I could ever be that hungry." "Then you are a lucky young badger," the crow told him, which made the other two crows laugh. "We have to eat what we can. Do you know how long it is since we had anything fresh?" This too made the other crows snigger in a way Brian didn't like. "Well, I'm sorry to hear that," White-Tip said, "so we'll just be on our way and leave you to it." "I don't think you should be in such a hurry to leave," the crow leader said, hopping over so close to White-Tip that his beak was nearly touching her snout. "I think you should stay for breakfast." Before the crow could say anything else, it was suddenly hit full in the face by a large clod of earth. "I don't think so," Brian said, digging out and hurling another lump of soil at the crow. "Run!" His friends did not need telling twice. They took off as fast as they could, past the crows, stumbling over the rubbish as they went. The squirrels leaped from tree to tree, while Brian and Nell shoved their way as quickly as they were able to through the snarled brambles and branches which grew alongside the river. As they all ran, they could hear the furious shouts of the crows behind them as the birds fluttered and swooped through the trees. All of a sudden Brian changed direction. "In here!" he yelled, and clawed his way into a particularly dense tangle of bushes. Nell followed quickly, and Squish jumped from a nearby tree and nearly landed on White-Tip, on Brian. They won't get to us in here, Brian gasped breathlessly. Where's White Tip? Squish asked in horror. She was right behind me. He started to go back, but Brian stopped him. You can't go back out there, he said. The crows will get you. But I can't leave her, Squish protested. White Tip is clever, Nell said. She'll find us somewhere safe. As soon as the crows get bored, we'll go out and find her. Sure enough, the noise of the crows above their heads had changed. Instead of the angry yells and threats, they seemed to be calling, back, back, and then there was silence. They've gone, Squish said. Now I'm going to find White Tip, but don't try and stop me again. With that, he clawed his way back through the bushes. As soon as he did so, he realised where the crows had retreated. They were not bored. They were afraid. Standing on a fungus-covered tree stump was the biggest buzzard Squish had ever seen. It fixed Squish with its piercing yellow eyes, opened its beak and let out a deafening screech. Lying at its feet, not moving, was the figure of a red squirrel. Squish didn't need to see the white fur at the tip of the squirrel's tail to know who it was. And come back tomorrow for the next part of Tale's End, hopefully without a guest appearance from Georgia Brown.